So let's get started. Let's get started. I'm not that formal about these things. I find this all interesting and fun and enlightening. So remote is really referring to remote treatment. And the only way to really understand it is to have that experience of using it and having your body respond. That is the way. So we're going to be looking at all this different stuff. And there's a lot. I've been looking at this for a while. And I should say, as I put together this PowerPoint, I've had it ready for like a couple of weeks. And today, as I opened it, it decided that this was the day that it would no longer show the images that I put in it. So I had to redo those, and it was annoying. Life goes on. Okay, so I want to be really clear about this. I'm not the authority. Everything in this webinar is stuff that I've come up with from my own experience and things I've picked up from other people, including John White, including Jeff Katzor, and including many people who I've worked with in training who came up with questions and answers that were so great, because everybody has this intuitive sense, and I get information from everywhere, and sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I think things are true and they're not, but my experience tells me what is so. And when I discover that I've said something incorrectly, then I work as hard as I can to correct that. I see somebody's here from Tucson. My mother-in-law is visiting right now from Tucson, Arizona, right on the edge of the Saguaro National Monument. So this was the original remote device. As you can see, it's much different than what we use now. I'm not really sure how it worked. I'm not really sure how people made use of this, but they had to use the Bio North port of the boost and the magnetic north, and I guess they work together. But I thought I should show you this because sometimes people will ask questions about these and I just never know. Bansil, hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Somebody I've worked with. Always good to see somebody here. I'm sure it's going well because she's really smart. So this is the remote device we use now. This is the 2.0. My wish list is the 3.0 would be, like twice as big as this. You listening, John? So it's what we use. And there's some implication that I totally understand how it works, but I only know what it does. I know the idea of how it works, but realistically, quantum entanglement is huge. And we're going to be looking at that and what it means. I want to say something else about quantum entanglement before I get into it. And that is, we're seeing a lot of scientists right now going, hey, we figured out this thing with quantum entanglement and we actually have verification and it really works. And now, I've been using this stuff for a while. I'm going, well, while these scientists are working to figure out that it does work, we actually have something that we use that is making use of quantum entanglement. So DNA sources and how long they last. Fingernails, yes. Enclosed in paper or tape. The suggested change out is monthly. However, I have used nails that are over 3 years old. They just continue to work. Polished nails are not a problem. The connection, the entanglement is not happening with the polish. It is happening with the DNA contained in the nails. What about toenail fungus? I don't really know. I frankly have toenail fungus, and I'm working to make that go away. And I tried something that I thought was very interesting. I put my toenails in a glass of water. This is not about remote, but I put them in a glass of water, and I put TENS pads on either side of the glass, and I ran biofeedback on the glass of water. And interestingly enough, because it was only an experiment, I did a reverse lookup. And when I did the reverse lookup, what do you think it found? All kinds of stuff, but it also found nail diseases. Thought that was a very interesting thing that happened. So I'm not really sure. It's not going to hurt you to use your toenails, even if they have fungus. Now, if I've said something incorrectly there, anybody that has more information is sure welcome to correct me. So saliva will work, dried on paper. People just take like blotter paper, right? Put it in their mouth and let it hang there, and let that dry and put that in the remote. Blood, yes, dried on paper. They say suggested change out 5 to 6 days. How do we know? The only way to know is to test. I test everything. Hair contains no DNA, but the bulb root does. And I wonder about that for the bird feather. I wonder if the shaft of the feather may have DNA contained in that. I don't know, but I certainly would do everything I could to check that out, to see your results. And the change out on that is weekly. So this was something I came across a while ago, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So what was going on is this kid was going, was I related to this old man? Is he my grandfather? And they didn't know. They just didn't know, and they couldn't find any DNA samples. And finally, somebody came across a box of old postcards stored in an attic for 100 years. And they took those stamps that he had licked and took DNA samples from that, and were able to link those two people. That man was indeed the kid's grandfather. So 100-year-old DNA on the back of a stamp was able to connect these two people, and people are concerned that they have to change out their nails every 2 weeks. So my logic just tells me, no, it's not such a big crucial thing. DNA lasts. Yeah, so here's what's happening. The way the DNA gets into the nail, it's as the nail grows, live skin cells are breaking off into the nail bed, right? And they're encapsulated in the keratin of the nail. It's a perfect way to preserve DNA, almost like the body is doing that on purpose for this purpose. Interesting. So there was that cartoon in Jurassic Park. Mosquitoes trapped in amber, the blood from a dinosaur found in the mosquito is extracted. Well, it's kind of like that for the DNA in your nail, right? It's inside, it was inside the mosquito, right? The DNA we're making use of is inside the nail, not the nail itself. So and I'm going to demonstrate how to set this up. But the terrain protocol is what is suggested. It was suggested by Johann Stegmann, who is the guy who came up with this ability to do this remote work. And he was saying, clear out the issues the body might have, the toxins, as much as possible, and it's going to respond better, more effectively to other frequencies. And this is the path. I just laid out the path here. This is the home page. You click on the detox link, you find detox, you go to the remote link, you open that, and then there's the terrain. And there are different flavors, right? If you have mercury fillings, you want to do terrain minus mercury. That's what that means. Because if you're if you have fillings that are leaking mercury into your body, well, detoxing terrain on the terrain, that metal, it's just going to keep replenishing itself. So it's not uh, quite everything it could be. So ignore it for the moment, and if you can, get rid of those fillings. So this is what I was talking about before. So he was treating for chronic diseases, and he just found people responded better when they used the terrain. And this is literally a paragraph in it's the first paragraph in the terrain notes. So when you bring up terrain, you're going to see this paragraph. So who says? Johann says. What if you don't do it first? Well, it's a recommendation, isn't it? Nobody's going to be, standing there with a bullhorn. You must do this. Instead, it's just this idea, it's this concept. And I see no reason not to do it. I have done it many times, and I always have one kind of experience or another. So I feel like it's a very positive thing to do. And, one of the things that a lot of people like to start with is the Schumann resonator, right? It just makes you feel good, and you get that experience pretty quickly. It just makes you feel generally good. And I've run it on myself and many, 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 many other people, and it has proven out effective. But you can't know if it's effective unless you try it. That's my standard. I see Amanda Grace here said, I thought we could only do terrain on 2 people at a time in the remote. That is not true. That is not true. You can do it on more, but you certainly want to label the people in case somebody is, having a huge reaction to it. You might. So now we're going to get into quantum entanglement. And Arthur Clarke, great science fiction writer, also a great scientist. And he said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Well, here we are. Here we are. This does feel like magic. We're walking a fine line here. So I'm going to read this. Quantum entanglement is when 2 particles link together in a certain way, no matter how far apart they are in space. Their state remains the same. Well, do you understand that? Do you totally understand that? Einstein did understand this. And what he said about it was, I know that it exists, but I don't like it because it's spooky. So what we're working with is spooky squared. And I found this cartoon and I thought, yep, this really does in some way explain it. It's silly, I get that, but it really does speak a kind of truth. I have worked on people at this point around the world. I've worked on people in Australia. I've worked on people, my brother and sister-in-law are in Singapore. I work on them. My son and his girlfriend are in New York City. My dad and my sister are in Ojai, California. It does do it. So remotes themselves do not create entanglement. They create a magnetic scalar field, which allows the writing of frequency information to an individual's DNA. That's what the generator is for, frequency generation. The person whose DNA is in the field receives that information, as we are each entangled with our own unique DNA. Very important to see that. Although we share DNA aspects with our parents, each person's DNA is identifiable as uniquely individual. When another person's DNA is in that same field in the remote, They receive the same frequency information. The two sets of DNA do not cross over to one another. One person's DNA does not overwrite the DNA of another person. The exception to that is with mothers. Sorry. All mothers retain some level of DNA of every child they give birth to. They're obviously already entangled with their children in many ways, including physically, because the mother's body holds the DNA information of her children. She may experience some effect if her children are using a remote. That is fascinating to me. And I found this article, right? Studies have shown that cells of the fetus cross the placenta and enter the mother's body through her bloodstream. They are sharing DNA in this particular aspect. It's only between a mother and her children. They don't go the other way, right? It's not the mother's specific DNA that is in their child. So it doesn't work both ways. But those cellular threads have been found to stay in the mother for decades. So it's possible. So entanglement is not based on the DNA sequence. DNA of an individual has divided countless times to become that person. And those divisions originate from the combined sources of sperm and egg. The resulting DNA in that new individual are uniquely the same. We are not our parents or our siblings. We may share aspects with them, but our DNA is our signature, our fingerprint, our ID. Physically, it's who and what we are. And Jeff Katzar said this, and it totally cracked me up. If entanglement were based on DNA, then 99% of the population would get a remote treatment when someone uses a DNA sample in the remote, including about 50% of all bananas. He's a funny guy. So there's this statement: we are slowed down sound and light waves, a walking bundle of frequencies tuned into the cosmos. We are souls dressed up in sacred biochemical garments, and our bodies are the instruments through which our souls play their music. It's a lovely quote. However, Albert Einstein did not make that statement, though in my last seminar, I attribute it to him. I was wrong. But because he did not say it doesn't make it untrue, nor does it make it true. These are ideas we need to examine for ourselves. But when it comes right down to it, does it really matter if that is so or not? We are what we are, and we're entangled with people close to us. My wife, Georgina, and I always talk about our shared brain. We literally have the same thought at the same time and the same feelings. We're entangled mentally, physically, and spiritually. I mean, I personally have come across twins that are clearly entangled. I mean, they will often say the same things in the same way. I have been witness to twins that were able to draw a mural from opposite sides of a canvas and come together in the middle. Was quite astonishing. And there was a sheet between them. That was a demonstration of their ability. It was quite amazing. Couples are entangled. Mothers are entangled. None of those kinds of entanglements requires a remote device. It's natural. Entanglement is natural. So as adults, when we become adults, we don't look to our parents as ultimate authorities anymore. Natural to look to people that we respect to help us understand the world. And often those people can be helpful. But just because someone inspires us with one thing, that doesn't mean they're always right about everything else. So as I see it, we're all part of the same thing. We each have a connection to what's right for us. That doesn't mean that we know what's right for others, nor does it mean that what they know is right for us. We're literally filled with insight all the time. I stress this when I work with people. Insight, your personal insight is really important. It may be the choices you make when choosing the programs that you want to use in Spooky. We're literally entangled with the universe. And am I right about that? I don't know. It's a trick question. I am for me. Now, this is sort of a side issue, right? Dr. Emoto, if you haven't looked at his work or come across his work, it's really worth exploring. It's really interesting. And this thing, I know this is hard to see on the screen, but these are all different crystalline formations seen under a microscope with just words on a glass of water, right? So they froze the water, and these are the crystalline formations that came up. And these are just words. This is entanglement through intention. And so that's part of what I'm stressing here is when you create something and you have intention of it working to do a particular job, it's a good idea to have your intention clear, right? It's a good idea. So I think we're getting into, yeah, okay. I'm going to do a quick live demo here. Okay, so first, let me show you how that works. Me using two cameras in this particular space is crazy. So to get the DNA sample, now I cut my fingernails. This is mine here, right? And I keep them in this little container. Containers are cheap. And I use tweezers to grab a piece of nail so that I'm keeping it clean. If this were somebody else's, I'm just going to set that down for a moment. If I were using somebody else's nails, I want to keep it to their DNA. I could get skin cells in there. It's possible. It's not probable. It's not probable. So let me grab that. Now, I want to make sure you can see this. So I'm just placing that nail in the fold of this, basically a bookmark. It's a Post-it bookmark. And I just fold over where it's sticky, right? So it's in that, it's enclosed in that end, right? Just enclosed in that end. And what I do is I put the person's name on it. So in this case, it's me. And I put the date. It's just for referencing, right? And I would just place it directly into the remote, right? And just place it directly into the remote. No, your machine does not have to stand upright. I'm doing this because of space. And also, since I have it upright, I kind of have it up against the wall because if I don't, my cat will knock it off. It's her pleasure in life. And I want her to have pleasure, but I don't want her to do that. So the Spooky2 Remote device has this white center, right? Anywhere in that white center is active, right? So you put anything in that white area and close it up, you're going to get that, that connection, right? So you can deliver frequencies to this unit anywhere in the white section. What am I leaving out? Anything? No. Okay. People are asking, what about a picture? I would say try it. I know people are all about this, connecting with, yeah, I'm going to stop the screen share in a moment. And I will highlight these features. Hold on a moment. Okay, so everybody should be looking at my Spooky interface. Is this correct? 'Cause Yeah, okay, good, thank you. And I will answer these questions that are coming up. I will. But let me just show you quickly how to do this, how to put the software to use. The reason this equipment is so cost effective is because all its controls are in the software. So if you wanted to do the terrain, you go to detox. This is the home screen, right? This is what you're first looking at. You would go to detox, you would go to remote, you would go to terrain. Now I have a little trick that I put to use. And that is I first come in here and I put the date. I know for some of you it's the 29th, but for me it's the 28th, and it is currently 7:29. Now you go, well, why would you do that? I'm going to show you. I'm going to save this. Now, when I save this, I'm saving outside, or rather, I'm saving to my user folder. That's the only way I can save it. And I have it labeled as a dated terrain. The reason I do that is because I'm in an area where power outages are common. And I just cannot count on that. I'm not going to lose power in the middle of doing terrain. However, if I date it like that and save it, and I come over here and get it from here, and I go to control, I can overwrite the generator. That's all I'm doing. And I can see it's now dated. I can always look back at this and see the date, right? And the time. So if this thing is running along and on day 3, it conks out, I can change this setting. When this is stopped, I can change this setting to 3, click out of it, and you'll see it's now on day 3. So if I have to, repeat some of it, so what? This is a cycle that's running every 15 minutes for 24 hours, right? Yes, highly recommended using what's called a UPS for power outages. I want you to know that I have a UPS. I bought it specifically for that reason. It cost more than almost $400, and it worked fine for about a month. And then it began closing down like every 2 days. It was shutting down more often than I lose power. So if you get one, make sure you get one that works. The company refunded my money, but it was very frustrating to have that occurring and having all my generators shut down. The computer stayed on. Will my generator X be damaged if the electricity goes off? Apparently not. I haven't had any problem with that. But protect it as best you can. So, what else? Yeah, so these things are running 24 hours. I'm going to go over this one thing because I think it's important. I'm going to overwrite the virtual generator here. And now, let's see what happened. It didn't overwrite. Okay, let me go back here. I'm going to click on that. I could click on the original terrain. The original terrain is really, what you're using. I just changed a little bit of something in the notes. So now, here's the terrain. And what I'm going to do, you wouldn't do this when working on a person, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to speed this up a lot, and I'm going to make it run. The reason I'm doing this is I want you to see what is often questioned. People say, well, I'm running the terrain and I'm just watching it. It's just on remove metal and it doesn't change. And you can see it's running and running. It's been running 12 hours here. It's just running, right? Still remove metals. But as we come up on hour 24, which is for us just going to be a matter of seconds here, now it's changed to day 2, and that's 2 remove metals. So I'm going to stop it. We don't have to keep doing that. but I wanted you to get the idea that this thing is just running in a cycle that takes all day. Sometimes it will break that day into two halves. So it's part one and part two, but basically you're running each day for 24 hours. So don't be discouraged if it's not doing what you expect it to do. Okay, I think that's enough for now. And I'm going to bring myself back up over here. And we can answer questions. Okay, let me move the chat window up over here. Okay, I'm gonna sort of buzz back up. It looks like we have a lot of questions. And yes, it will be placed up for review. I like seeing so many people from all over the world. That's really cool. I like seeing that because this is a movement. We are changing things for a lot of people. Yeah, you got to have a Mac or Parallels. I would just buy a cheap PC. Hot Springs. All attendees are going to have their picks on no. Pacemaker, frequencies are passing through our bodies all the time. Asked a cardiologist about it and he said the frequencies will not interfere with it at all. Thank you for answering that in a more detailed way. Thank you. Claudia from Vancouver. Hi, Claudia. Nice to hear from you. How are you? Let's see. Fingernails and toenails. We've talked about that. Wrist attachment. Nope, sometimes the lights don't flash. Sometimes only one will flash. All right. Colorado. I spent quite some time there. Cold laser and nails in the same time for one person. Well, yeah, you can do that, but you're talking about work on two different generators, right? Work on two different generators. Replace the nails when it feels comfortable to replace them. I find that they work a really long time, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But do what makes you comfortable. You know, if something in you says, hey, these should be replaced, then do it. Spooky2 frequencies interfering with other healing equipment. I can't really answer that. I suppose it's possible, but I doubt it. But if you're using something like plasma, maybe. I don't know what other kind of equipment you're using. Here's my face. Hi, Nina. That's funny. Yeah, I spent a lot of time primping for this. Yes, that's a good answer. You know, if your remote LEDs don't light, you know, check out this post on the blog. But sometimes they just don't. Sometimes the frequencies are running faster than your lights can keep up with. I ran terrain on someone else and I felt the program. I wiped the remote with alcohol, which lessened the results on me. How can this be prevented in the future? You may be very sensitive, and I would suggest not handling their nails physically. I use tweezers, and these are tweezers that I specifically got because they're titanium, which means they are not magnetic, right? That makes a difference. You don't want, well, I use those for different reasons, but I use them mostly when I'm doing imprinting work, and you don't want magnets coming in touch with the imprints. So yeah, that would be the way. Don't touch their stuff. Don't allow your skin cell to get accidentally placed in the remote. Hello, Puerto Rico, Nova Scotia. Hey, Margaret Mayerfield. Hi, Todd from Tucson. All right, yay, Tucson. My father-in-law designed the Arizona University Wildcat that is still everywhere there. He passed away several years ago, but he's still a strong presence. Lancaster. I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure. Poland in Perth, Heath? I'm saying it completely wrong. My wife would yell at me, and my sister-in-law is British, so she would yell at me louder. Can anything be done about the echo? No. If you're hearing the echo, it's because I am currently living in a really big house that has an echo. It's what we could find in Mexico. We were lucky to find it. It's actually quite large, and we were able to fill it with stuff and feel comfortable here. And we're here for another 4.5 months. Yes, people talk about using photos. I have zero experience with this. Zero experience with this. People talk about it working. I haven't tried it. My sister works with a different kind of equipment, and she talks about it being a thing, and I'm resistant. Maybe someday I will try it. I'm looking over in these questions over here. Will my identical twin be affected when I use my DNA sample? It's unlikely, but try it and let us know, right? It's not going to hurt them. Okay, what else have we got? We're talking just about sending frequent. No, you cannot scan remotely. That is the digitizer is not a remote scanning device, so it's sending frequencies, not the other way. We hear all kinds of things. It says, I heard you can use photos too. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people say a lot of things, and a lot of people repeat those things as though they're so. But my basic idea is if you try it and it works for you, then it does. And if you try it and it doesn't work for you, it doesn't. But again, it doesn't mean that it's the same for everybody. I just don't have any experience with it. I use DNA and that works. Spooky2 is not like it. If all the people have no serious health concerns, their DNA can go in one remote. Now, this is coming from John White. And the program run on that generator. Ensure each DNA sample is in its own paper sticker. The Spooky2 remote can be closed. So yeah, you wouldn't want to stack up so many nails that you can't close the device. It has to be closed. Spooky2 remote can keep 50 fingernails in a DNA sample. Some people run the protocol 2 to 3 times per year. I do that. It would depend on each person's health condition. Now, if somebody, I'm not sure of this answer, the way this is answered, it seems to indicate you could put 50 nail samples in here. You could, in theory, do that, but they would have to be on a single sticker. That's the only way I could think of to do it in order to fit in there and have this closed. You could not stack them up because 50 you would have quite a gap. And from what I'm understanding and what my experience is, you don't want to have a gap there. How often should you run the terrain? Well, we just talked about a couple times a year, seems reasonable. And, you know, I've already run it more than twice this year, but realize that because of the place I'm in, this place does not have the kind of water purification systems that we're used to in other parts of the world. And I and my wife ate some lettuce we should not have eaten that had been improperly washed. Did I think it was a good idea to do the terrain again? Yes, I did. And it just finished today. And I'm glad I did it. So. Okay. My cat has asthma, so terrain wouldn't be advisable since he cannot hydrate. So do what you can for your cat without doing terrain. I'm not sure about doing terrain on animals, frankly. It would be a good idea if the animal is healthy, but I wouldn't push, kitty too hard. Use your intuition, use your common sense, use that part of you that is communicating all the time, telling you what's appropriate, what's going to work, what's going to help. When you listen, it can be very effective. Okay. Yes, a laptop is okay. Just get any Windows computer. I have a computer that has to be 15 years old. It's about this big. It's just this tiny little thing. It runs Windows 98, I think, and it runs one of my machines. It's fine. I'm not sure what this question is. Is there a limit? Using a laptop with Windows 10 works perfectly well. I have laptops running Windows 11. They work perfectly well. One remote for terrain with DNA and one for remote. Yeah, you definitely can do that. And there are programs that allow you to run that in a cycle, hunt and kill. Hi, Yura. Nice to see you here. Yura is so great. She works with John White and she is so helpful. Yeah, Chromebooks. Yeah, don't try those. They're going to waste your time. Yeah. So a lot of people use laptops. A Mac person with a small laptop with Windows 7 works perfectly. We need to take out medbed.com. I'm not sure what that is. Medbed. What was the resonators you suggested? That's the Schumann resonator, and it's under healing in the preset. Okay, there's another answer for doing terrain. Been using remote on my asthmatic cat, using his nails. I assume you're getting results. Yeah. Desktop PC has better cooling fan. Yeah, it depends what you're using. I have a very large gaming laptop or desktop at home, and it has fans and water coolers and all that stuff. It's great, but I have this laptop here that's really keeping up. I'm pleased with what it's doing, and it runs 24/7. The Schumann resonator, what that's called. Safe to use. Remote for animal and human overnight. I have. I don't know exactly what you're doing. Remote things can often run 24 hours, 24/7. When I first started doing rifing, I had a machine that didn't have anything like remote. It just had a couple of paddles. You'd hold them in your hands and you would sit and you had to hold them. So you really couldn't do anything else. And you would sit for 45 minutes to an hour and a half and holding these paddles, and it did the job. It absolutely did the job. But remote, being less powerful in that way, allows you to just go about your business, right? Just allows you to go about your business. We've got a lot of questions here. And so, yeah, you can let those run 24/7. I have run the Schumann resonator 24/7 on many, many people all at the same time, as well as my cat and one dog. and nobody started barking, and nobody developed a taste for cat. When I use fingernails, can I wrap them with paper towel or tape? Yeah, you can. Tape is thinner. Like, I have this tape that I got from Spooky. It's just medical tape, right? But you could use medical tape's perfectly good, right? Or Post-it. These Post-its are great. They work well. I built an interoperative MRI in the USA with that satanic Oliver, and they're creating vaccine. I don't know what that is. This is really inappropriate. Somebody advertising other stuff in this thread, but you know, your karma is your karma, so live with that. Spread the Einstein lie, judging from your Coke bottle glasses. Assumes actually Spooky does have vision care, and these Coke bottle glasses are 1.0 reading glasses. I was wearing 2.0. You're such a nice person, George. Paper tape is suggested for fingernails. Top right button, switch cameras, thank you. Setting up GX wiring, I'm going to keep the contact wire in G2. I want to go back to remote. I wouldn't, you don't want to have two things on the same boost. So if you have a contact on the one, you don't want to have the remote on the same boost. Apparently that drains power, you know. So just disconnect it. Don't need a Windows computer. Just Windows 10 software, which is free, can be downloaded on Mac with Boot Camp. There you go. Do that. That'd work. I'm not a big Mac person anymore. I used to be, so I'm not really up with all that. But yeah, do what works. That's really the thing. Do what works. Okay, that's back where I left off before. Red lights come on when the remote is in use. Not always, most of the time. Kind of tape to you. Medical tape is great. It's cheap. You can buy it at any drugstore. And if you're not that picky about it, masking tape. Use what you have. Make sure it's clean. You know? Isolated from other frequencies, environment. Use remote mode. My Spooky system, my music. No, that's not an issue. You can run the remote wherever you are. It's not entangling with the frequencies in your environment. It's the frequencies are coming from the generator that you have the remote device attached to, and that's reaching you through your DNA, right? So your music is not going to be a problem. Yeah, that's good. Okay. See people talking here. Let's see what else we got. Heard to use more than just one fingernail. I'll answer that live. Robert Braden is asking, is it preferred to use more than just one fingernail, such as a large thumbnail, or use multiple pieces? Frankly, I have used a snippet of an entire fingernail. It worked perfect, right? They do, flicker base. So people are answering. You will know when it's working when the light is steady or flickering. That's not always true. Sometimes the lights are not showing, and sometimes only one will show. And in the Spooky2 documentation, you will find that information. You need one laptop totally devoted to Spooky2. No, you don't have to only run Spooky2 on it. I run I have this one laptop that I'm working with now with you. I run everything else on it, including most Adobe products, Windows, Office, Zoom, obviously, you know. Um, so yeah, you don't have to have one devoted, but it has to be powerful enough to run your other stuff. Doesn't take a lot of power to run Spooky. Can I still kill and heal without doing a bioscan? Sure, sure you can. You can do those things without bioscanning. Choose the programs that appeal to you. Sure. Hi from London, Canada. London, Canada. Thanks for all your great information. My pleasure. I'm I'm doing my best. Um, would you recommend this for a beginner? Well, yeah, I was a beginner when I started. So yeah, yeah, it takes a little work, takes some figuring out to get through it. How do you know the frequency running through stays the same during the entire time? Well, it doesn't, because programs change, right? The the um, the dwell, the time that an individual frequency is running is set typically at 180 seconds. So for that long, that frequency is running, and then it changes to the next frequency. I hope that answers that question. I'm not sure. Can I use regular terrain as my regular detox program as my remote detox program in generator 1, along with my chosen protocol in generator 2, instead of maintenance detox? I suppose. I don't see any reason why not. You might want to feel like you have a little bit more of a clear handle on what's happening, but yeah, I guess you can. Somebody might chime in and say, oh no, don't do that, but I think you can. What protocol would you recommend after radiation and chemo? I don't make recommendations. I'm pretty skilled with software and in having my own experiences, but I don't give medical information. I'm not a doctor. My background is in art and technology, so I'd like to help you out with that. But if you search the database, you're very likely to come across things that can work for you. And you can talk to other people in the Spooky2 or Rife for Life, Spooky2 Rife for Life Facebook group. There's a lot of people there with a lot of information, and they're willing to share, and you can direct message them. Why would you want people to use more than one fingernail at one time? Well, if you're working on multiple people, right? Fingernails. Been using several generators. Oh, okay, running it on a Mac. However, the generators keep losing connection. So any work sounds ideas why this might be happening. I don't have an answer. Again, I'm no longer Mac centric. So yeah, that's not a typical thing to happen. But you might check your USB wires and your ports. That would be a good place to start there. What would you recommend? Again, I'm sorry, I don't give any medical suggestion. Don't you have to use a digitizer to do the hunt and kill? Well, no, you could be connected to the device and do it through the connection. You can do hunt and kill through contact. That's a question from Amanda Grace. Yeah, you could. Can you run all the programs remote? Sure. Yeah, you can. They may not be as effective as in terms of timing as contact or plasma, but yeah, you can. Set up my spooky, running terrain, but didn't put a nail in the remote. What's the difference to adding a nail and not using one? Well, if you don't put a nail in the remote, the remote device cannot read the DNA in the nail and therefore does not reach your body. That's the difference. If I have 3 people I want to heal, do I need 3 units? Not necessarily, but here's the thing. When people get a few units, is something that I did. I started with, I think, 1 generator X and 3 XM. Let me just put it this way. I have something on the order, I have 4, 5 X generators and perhaps 20 XM generators. So what happens is when you have this experience of realizing that they work, you tend to want more of them. I hope that answer is appropriate. But yeah, you don't need them. You could run all 3 people in a single generator at the same time if you're running the same programs on them, but you might want to have more. Why would the VS scan graph be flat after upgrading Spooky2 program? I don't know the answer to that. You would have to ask somebody that's more clear about that information. And I would again reach out in the Spooky2 Rife for Life Facebook area or on the forum. How long saliva and DNA last? I already talked it. Yeah, about 3 to 5 days, they tell me. And is it possible to share the screens again where you explain the remote is rewriting script to DNA? Not really, but this webinar will be saved and people can look at it again. So you'll be able to go back to that spot. Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see what this does. Pretty exciting. I'm sorry about not going back to that, Edward, but it would just take too long at this moment. Can you please help me? No toenails. Who says no toenails? I don't know who is saying that. Toenails do seem to work. The highest frequency used in an XM generator? Somebody else should answer that. Again, my background isn't in science, medicine, or math. I use these things, I see that they work, and then I keep doing it because it works, not because of my new understanding about, what the highest frequency is or, why it works. None of that means as much to me as it actually working. Okay. I think that covers everything. I think that's it. Yes, this is recorded. What is the VG generator purpose and how and when is it used? The VG generator is a virtual generator, meaning it's used for testing. That's exactly what it's for. When you put together a program of your own and you want to see how it's working, that's the place to go. And that's what I demonstrated with the terrain by running it extra fast. I did that deliberately in the virtual generator. And you show how to run a loop. To run a loop, that has to do with your sequence, right? It has to do with your sequence. Let's see if I have the spooky here. So right here, repeat sequence, 0. That means it's going to loop, right? If it's a chain, now that's a little bit more complicated and you will get to that eventually. But if it's a chain and the chain is 0, that chain will loop. That means individual programs, individual chain setup presets will run one after another. Each preset will follow the next one if that's at 0, right? 0 means looping, infinite. How long a program needs to run till it works, right? When it works, you'll know. All programs don't loop. You don't have to loop the program. If you wanted a sequence to run 10 times, you would put 10 in there. You wouldn't do that with this because this is the terrain, but I'm using that as an example. Can we load the terrain program onto the generator X and run it without a computer? You can, but then it would be manual. You would have to manually run it each time. Kind of paper tape to use what works. It doesn't have to be special. All right. My name is John, so I don't know what the A is for. Should I be using any killing remote while using the same time or on the scalar at night? It's your choice. You have to make those choices. You can save text on your computer, Mr. B, Mr. B, okay? How many times can I sequence the program? As many times as you want. All right, I think we have reached the end here. Unless anybody has last questions. If you want to ask them in the chat, you're welcome to. I will answer them as best I can. And the frequencies that go into DNA and the fingernails, which is in the remote, be sensed by a person who is sitting in the room where the generator is located. Not that I know of. Hunt and kill program is named what? Hunt and kill. Just follow those directions. My pleasure. Universal H-bomb and hunt and kill. Hunt and kill is a program all on its own. Universal H-bomb is a user preset that worked for both killing and healing. You have to get more into it to understand that. My pleasure, Amanda. Thank you. You're on terrain and DB cancer protocol at the same time. You can, they're just, I would think you would get better results when the terrain is completed, but I don't see any reason not to run them both at the same time. You're welcome, Jeffrey. Thank you. Thank you very much. Where do I get the manual? You can download it from the site. Comes with the software. All of that's free. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you guys. Thank you. Cognitive enhancement program using Spooky. There is. I've actually had some quite astonishing results with that on more than one person. So yeah. It's quite startling, actually. Which kit is best for a beginner? Well, if it were me, I would jump right into the simplest generator X Pro. Personally, I would do that, and I would get the boost and the remote and the wiring, all that goes with it. I would do that. That would, if I could go back, that would have been my first purchase. Thank you. I do try. Frequency going into the DNA does not affect other people in the room. No. Whether whether they're in the room with the generator or they're in the room with the person receiving it. No matter where they are in the world, it's only going to affect the person whose DNA is being specifically targeted in the remote device. You're very welcome, Northern Alberta, Canada. My pleasure. Thea Clark in Shreveport, Louisiana. I have been there. My pleasure. There is no optimal distance for use of the remote. As I said, I work on people all over the world with the remote and I achieve results. So no, there's no, they could be on the moon. Maybe somebody would go to the moon and, leave their fingernails with me. So I could try it. Then I would be able to say that absolutely works. But so far, the farthest I know is Singapore. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you sat in too, Ahmed. Daily wellness, also amazing. I agree. JD, yes. The daily wellness program is quite amazing. It's good. There are a lot of really good programs. But if you don't have that kind of money, then start with an XM kit, generator XM kit. Make sure you get a boost and a remote. And if you can afford to get the pieces that allow you to do biofeedback, that is contact, you might want to do that and jump into that. You save a lot of money that way, and you're going to experience results, and you will ultimately want more. Do you use the plasma? I do when I'm not in Mexico. I have it in Portland, but I couldn't bring it. As it was, it cost me an additional $400 to bring all the equipment I brought across the border. I didn't know about how to declare things properly. So you don't need a dedicated computer only for Spooky. No, you do not. Right? You do not have to have one dedicated. I have some that are dedicated, but I have other machines like the one I'm currently using right now that is not a dedicated Spooky2 machine, but I use it for Spooky2 along with everything. Yeah, it's nice to have one dedicated. I have one sitting across from me right now that is dedicated. It's a much less powerful machine than the one I'm using right now. A cheap laptop works really well. Yasmin, you're welcome. Very, very, very welcome. Can you Spooky without a computer? Not really. You need a computer. At least you have to start. Would you run a Zoom one day talking about the different functions? There's so many features. Actually, I have a lot of videos up. You can search me and Spooky2 on YouTube, and you will see lots of my videos, or you can check out my website, which is rifework.com. If you go to the BYO page, buy your own equipment page, you'll see that I have lots of videos up there, lots of downloads and links. Can we use Spooky2 without Wi-Fi? You don't need Wi-Fi for Spooky. If you have an Ethernet connection, I mean, you've got to download the equipment. How do I search the data bank? To search the data bank, you would type in what you're looking for and search it. You're welcome, Sharon. Sometimes we all need a refresher. Just got a Scholar. That's great. I love mine. I have it on the second floor of this house. I did bring that along to Mexico. On the second floor, it affects both floors. I don't know if there's one, but probably. Well, here's a question. If running the terrain program on a remote on generator X, can I also run biofeedback? Well, remember the biofeedback is going to pause all the rest of your generators, so it would pause your terrain. So can you? Yeah, but you know. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. Yes, I agree. And happy every other holiday that you celebrate. Here in Tepatepec, we just completed celebrating the Gordita Festival. It was fantastic. Can you emulate frequencies in with healing frequencies? You can separate remote emulate. I would do those separate. That's my personal take. So here's your answer. When doing biofeedback scan, you can't do other programs. Well, it's going to pause them. So that's kind of the same answer, unless you have it on different computers. When one downloads program to generator, you said it has to run manually. What do you mean manually? What I mean is the timing of the remote terrain has to do with the computer. The computer is managing that timing. The generator by itself, standalone, doesn't do that. So you would have to load each of those days into the generator and then run them specifically. Yeah, I'll put my website here. That's my website. And like I said, there's lots of stuff there, you know, that is all available. It's all available for free. Plenty of videos. This video will ultimately be there because I take them from YouTube and I put them there as well. I want to make sure people can find them. Can Spooky repair vision? It has repaired mine to a degree. It is not perfect, but I continue to run that program for a very good reason. It's working. Coach Carey, it may, but everyone is different. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, let's have an amazing new year. Spooky2 on Telegram, okay. All right, guys, I'm going to say good evening. I think I've covered everything I can possibly cover. I have more questions than I could possibly answer, but I appreciate all the questions and I hope I've been helpful. And the more you work with this stuff, the better you're going to know it. You know, work with it. It's what I tell students when I teach Adobe products too. Same thing. Work with it. Keep working with it, and you're going to get better at it. And it's fun. The more results you get, the more fun it becomes. All right. Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. You guys are great. Thank you.